Hey scholars, so yesterday we reviewed about informative paragraph and we went through our paragraph that we wrote about feathers to help you remember about how we wrote it. Today you're actually going to get started with writing your sentences for your own paragraph about beaks. Again, this paragraph you're doing on your own so we can see what you know. So we're going to go over only two parts today for you to write. Our focus statement, which is the first sentence of our paragraph to let the reader know what our paragraph is about, and then our first detail. Tomorrow then you'll finish your paragraph with the second detail and your conclusion. So let's get started. So when we wrote our feathers paragraph, we had a focus question. It said, how do birds use their feathers to survive? So from this question, what were we going to be writing about? Right, how feathers help birds survive. So we took this question to help us start our paragraph with our focus. We said birds' feathers help them to survive in many ways. So all we did is we took how do birds use their feathers to survive, this question, and turned it into a sentence, a statement, saying birds' feathers help them to survive in many ways. For you, when you're going to be writing your focus statement, you're not talking about feathers, you're going to be talking about beaks. So our focus question for you, instead of how feathers help birds survive, is how do birds use their beaks to survive? So you're not going to say that birds' feathers help them survive in many ways, because we're not talking about feathers. You're going to make a sentence saying how beaks help birds survive. So you're going to then take your focus sentence and you're going to write it and then draw a picture to match, just like we did when we were writing our poem for the sun. So that's your first step, is to talk about your focus statement, what your paragraph is about. And our paragraph this time is not about feathers helping birds survive, it's about how beaks help birds survive. Next, we have our detail. Now there's going to be two parts you have to do for the first detail. So we had this lovely chart. We took our notes about describing the beaks, how they help them survive. So we're going to be doing the same thing. So our next one said, some birds have thick feathers. So all we did was come to our notes and we thought, okay, we're going to do the feathers that are thick. So when we have the word thick, is that a sentence if I just say thick? No, so we have to make the word thick into a sentence. So thick is describing our feathers. So all we did was take the word thick and say how some birds have thick feathers. So that's step one of our detail. So what you're going to do for step one of your detail is you're going to look at our chart in the first column. So you're going to think about which beak do you want to talk about for your first detail. So we have the beaks for the song sparrow, macaw, hummingbird, eagle, woodpecker, flamingo, skimmer, spoonbill, heron, pelican, and crossbill. So if I were you, maybe you want to choose the birds that you talked about yesterday in your assignment that you liked, that had with their beaks. So you're going to come and pick one of these. So maybe you want to pick hooked. And again, is the word hooked a sentence? No, so you can maybe say some birds have hooked beaks. Or there's a bird that has a hooked beak. So you need to change your detail describing your beak into a sentence. So that's step one of your detail. And then you're going to do the same thing. So instead of it being for your focus statement, you're going to write your first sentence for your detail and draw a picture to match. So that's step one, making the sentence with your describing your beak. Then the second part of our detail, we have to explain what that beak is being used for. So for our second part of our detail about feathers, we said that it has thick feathers. But if I say thick feathers, does that explain how it helps the bird survive? No, it's just describing the type of feathers. So now we have to look at our chart to say, how do thick feathers help birds survive? So now I'm just jumping right next to it, and it says protects from the sun. So that's how those feathers help them survive. Again, is protects from the sun a good sentence? No, it's not put together. So we had to take this note and make it into a sentence. So then we said, these feathers protect them like sunscreen. So we just took our notes and made it into a sentence. So together our details said some birds have thick feathers. So we talked about how the feathers look. And then we said these feathers protect them like sunscreen. So now we told the reader how the feathers protect them, how the feathers help them survive. So we're going to go back. So after you write your sentence about describing the beak, now you need to look next door to how that beak helps the bird survive. So I'm going to go back to the one that I said hooked. So if I'm using hooked, now I'm going to look to see that the hooked beak is used to tear scales and flesh. And again, is tear scales and flesh a complete sentence? No, it's not. So I need to turn this into a sentence. So after saying some birds have hooked beaks, I can then say these beaks are used to tear scales and flesh. So again, you're going to take two parts. You'll have two sentences for your first detail. So you're going to put first, how does the beak look? Describe the beak. And then your next sentence will be, how does it help the bird survive? And I will make sure I'll send you my example, but I want you to use something else. So your job today is to create your focus statement. So remember, we have how do birds use their beaks to survive? So think about what your paragraph will be about. And then you're going to write your first detail. So you're going to look at our chart, pick out one of the beaks to talk about. So your first sentence then will be, how does the beak look? Describe the beak. And then your next part of the detail will be, how is that beak help the bird survive? So you have all your information here. You need to just put it into your sentences. Can't wait to see your paragraph start.